Что?
Сейчас, я переключу наверх.
Не важно сейчас, на самом деле.
Сегодня, короче, общалась с нашим иностранцем. Я в Тургу. Он такой стоит, такой, много? Я такая, да. Он такой, нахуя?
А у вас иностранцы ваши?
Да, 2 турка,
Они агрессивны?
2 туркмена и 5 вьетнамок.
5 вьетнамок?
А турки?
Ну, турки нормально, турки у меня есть. У нас работает достаточно. На какой на камеру работает?
Ни хрена себе.
На какую на камеру работает?
Капец.
Тут, о, Машка, дай печеньки. Машка, дай печеньки.
Нашел приз!
Это можно там?
Пойдем. Иди сюда.
Сейчас, подожди, надо за печеньки.
Я не буду какие завтра, короче, на такой брейк.
Все, люди цивилизованно.
Когда я вытащу, чтобы верить.
Благодарю.
Hey, everyone.
А на самом деле, что происходит? Кто что
Антон.
Смотри.
Можно это зафоткаю, Паша, ты?
На том кемпе
А есть он прикрученный. Это тоже я делал. Вообще, надо запатентовать эту идею.
Да.
Я сейчас Паше это скину.
Это Паша знает.
Не, айфон был папский гораздо.
А вот если можно будет кому снимать? Ну, только не моим планшетом. Что-то.
Ну, в мене є такі планшети, але я не знаю, як це знімати.
Мы знаем.
Мы знаем, как это работает. Давай нам разберем.
Да.
А на чем? На какой платформе? Windows?
Привет, привет.
Здоровайся. Нет?
Привет, такой классный свитер.
А, дякую.
Влад. Теперь покажи мне, где ты нашел переноску.
А?
Переноску.
Белая?
Поставь ее.
Но ее надо будет вернуть кастам.
Без проблем.
Ребята, а есть что писать?
Писать им на доске флипчарты.
Да.
Сейчас хост принесет. Никит, сходи к хосту, скажи, что он обещал принести мне флипчарт.
Где тут хостовый?
Да вон парень сидит, тут 1 человек всего лишь.
Ага, сейчас спросить?
Скажи, что он обещал принести флипчарты. Флипчарты!
Такие дошки.
Привет, слушай,
Сейчас. Все сейчас. Реально? Может, я занималась спортом и кипела, но вообще, я сейчас 2 дня занималась в спортзале, качалась.
Никита, ты вот печенье, я очень вкусное. Это Маша.
еда, ни пальца, никого не будет. А если что, можно рассказать?
Блин, ты мог сказать раньше, я подумал, что второй клиент. Но второй клиент второй клиент дома.
Просто шикарно.
А я буду смотреть себе.
Можно глядеть на Алену смотря так. Алена видно и здесь, и здесь. Да.
Никит, да? Вы что, против?
Я думал, так как ты думал, они не обидятся.
Нет, это что?
Я такой тебе написала,
Нет, ты знаешь, откуда ты это? Just by the way, when is he arriving?
Давай.
Вы с кем разговариваете? Хорошо.
Когда он пришел,
Слышишь?
все тоже
Да. А я переделал еще.
Хочешь послушать интересную информацию? А мы сейчас придем. Не завтра.
Нашли второй этаж, девочки?
Да. Вы должны были найти второй этаж.
Ну, вы так долго ходили, поэтому...
Просто ходили потом на третий курс. Так вы вчера доехали. Ну, мало ли. Вдруг я к тебе приставала. Я только за порог, а потом и все, она тебе...
Только можно попросить максимально тихо, здесь очень громко, как перебивается. В любом случае, попросите тихо.
Что мы ждем?
Ну, ничего, по идее, мы начинаем. Да.
Она абстракция.
Просто нам дальше в камеру.
Yeah. I guess. I think we can start, right? What time is it? It's around 3ish, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're 3 minutes late.
Oh.
Like in Germany, we don't do that.
No, we can't do that in Germany. I'm highly disappointed. I think at this point we should start the workshop and everybody's thinking what he just did. We are currently just two. David is missing. We have prepared this quick workshop at the beginning where we talk about a little bit about BP. The idea how you generally make an argument and what's the general structure of BP, what are you supposed to do at which point in the debate. After that we have 3 specific workshops. I'll do the workshop on the interesting topic that is the European Union. I know it sounds boring, but might get more interesting. Digital refugee situation, Greek crisis, a little bit about the structures and the prospects of the European Union and why it will either fall apart or will get out of those situations stronger.
I'll make a technique workshop that talks about second half, especially how I make extension. Sort of like most times you end up being second term and second opposition, and you have to come up with things that are drastically faster in the debate. So there's certain things you can do to come up with that stuff easier, make it more impactful. Hopefully some of that stuff will manage.
And David will have a surprise workshop that is so secret that even we two don't know it at this point. But it will be incredibly interesting and
I heard great
thought out.
things.
You know, he promised us the best workshop that was ever given, I think, in the Northern Hemisphere, something like that. Something like that. So, just ask him about what he wants to talk, where you see it, if you see him. We don't know if he actually exists at this point, but we hope the best.
We heard he looks something like.
Yeah, and he was described like that. And his Facebook profile claims that he was like that. Okay, let's just quick have. So, can each of you, maybe we are not that many, so at any point I would suggest that you ask questions if you have some. I would like to have a quick introduction round, just everybody say a phrase, what's her name, how long are you debating, and what would you like to know in this introduction workshop, so that we get a grasp what you want to hear, what you want us to talk about. I would propose you start.
No, I am.
No, you are starting.
No, maybe go.
Okay. If you want to start, coward.
You already know me. My name is Alona. I debate round 2 and
can give a workshop in German if everyone's so.
I played debate around 2 years, but I debate only Ukrainian and Russian. I want to debate by English, but English is not bad. It's not good. I expecting for you interesting theory in the debate. So.
My name is Eugene. I joined to these debates approximately 30 weeks ago, so I have not good experience in well, but I think that these workshops will improve my knowledge of these debates, and I think that it will be interesting for all of us.
Well, hello, my name is Sveta. My English isn't really well, and I have got some problems with debate. Like
We all do.
I think today will be very, very interesting, and I don't know what to do.
So the good thing is, we all had to struggle, I think, at the beginning of English debating. So I was always embarrassed about each and every of my speeches, and it will just get better through training. So the first speech you will feel horrible, the second you will feel probably worse. At the end of the day, you will feel at least happy that you made it through the day, and then it's getting better. And at the end, you don't really realize anymore that you're speaking English. So at the beginning, everybody had to struggle. I think, probably me too.
The only thing that works is you call your mom and mom, am I good debater? And just, of course. They're like, oh, okay, keep doing this.
Yeah. I'm not happy about it. That's another story. Can I ask one of you in the last row?
Yes, I must struggling and say about how long I'm in debate.
Yeah.
I researched only 2 weeks ago, and I know only basic things about debate, but I think it's a cool thing because you can speak, you can see with people, and I must improve my speaking. And I think this debate it's only what I need. And my name is Jan.
Very well. Hey,
No questions by it.
okay.
I will ask.
Okay.
You need to speak. You need to tell something.
Introduce yourself.
Introduce myself, sorry. My name is Anton. I'm playing debates for maybe a year without months, something like that. And I tried to play English debates in English last week. So now I have not so much experience in that, but I have more experience in debates at all. So I think
That was nice.
Ask those girls.
Yeah, that was actually a nice try. Not that I realize it. Smart move. You almost fooled us.
My name is
I don't speak English.
But, yeah, what would you say now?
Yeah, if you really don't want to, then.
No, yeah.
But okay, now, if it makes you too uncomfortable, a little uncomfortable is fine, but too uncomfortable, we don't want that. Nice.
Hi, my name is Anton. My English is very bad. But I understand what you say. Maybe some words I don't understand, but but in all I understand. I don't have experience with debates in English language, in Ukrainian language. I too don't have any experience in debates. I want to maybe I want to take some experience tonight from you.
That sounds horribly wrong, but maybe you should buy a drink first.
That might be David's workshop, though.
My name is Alexander. I play debate maybe 6 months. I don't a good player, but I think that you guys can me play best, and that's why I'm here. Okay, my name is Nikita, and I started to play debate 5 months ago. I also don't know English well, but I want to study how good playing debates on high level.
Go ahead. My name is Vladislav. I played debate for 2 weeks only, and I heard from you that you say us many useful information and how to debate more effectively, more effectively.
My name is Sasha. I play in debate 2 weeks. I don't speak English.
That's a lot of stuff.
My name is Anona. I'm a student of Economic University. I'm debate about 2 weeks. I want to know more about the debate because I think that it helps me. It helped me in the future, in my career maybe, and I think that help to speak with other people more. More less. Yes.
So the thing is that debating is a competitive sport. So it's not that you don't speak English well, you speak English well in comparison to others. If you all don't speak English that well, then you really don't have to be afraid of anything. So it's not that you have to be afraid of the other team. It seems to me that that's why we have ESL and TSL categories internationally. English as a foreign language and English as a second language, just because there is this language barrier. We all are aware of that, and we all have struggles with that. At the beginning, it is always hard, and everybody, you know that as good as we know that, I would think. So you have to get through those first, let's say 20, 30 English debates. After that, you can stand confidently and talk for 7 minutes. And if that's part of what you want to achieve, then I actually have one question. I don't know that much about Ukrainian debating.
Yeah, is the style you guys debate and those who do tournaments, whether in Ukrainian language or in Russian, is it
So the problem is that we would love to talk about the differences and what you have to do differently internationally. We cannot do that because we never debated that style. We can just tell you how we perceive debating internationally. The thing is, if you see differences between your debating style and what we are telling you here, and you should ask that and point that out for the others, because that's probably more important for you than us just talking.
Since there are some people who are only recently started, some of you have experience, we're just going to start at the beginning, and then we'll move on swiftly after that if everyone's clear on the rules.
Okay. You want to start with?
So either that's the solar system or the structure of the debate. I assume we're all aware that there are two sides of the debate. There's the government, there's the opposition. In DP, it becomes more fun because there's two government, there's two opposition. So it becomes a game of strategy, and then there are 8 debaters at one time in every room. Essentially, besides the prime minister and the whip speakers, everyone has almost the same role, which is introduce new arguments, rebut the arguments the others made. The way it goes is that obviously the prime minister comes out and his role is to set up the debate. So whatever the motion is, you are either asked to introduce some kind of theme to the debate to make it a debate that can be debated, whether you need to introduce some kind of model or a principle to the debate. After that, everything just goes smoothly. I'm not sure if we have to explain more on this. I think maybe we're gonna use some example and then show how the structure works when we have some kind of practice.
Yeah, we can actually. So I propose that we go through all the speeches more or less, and maybe chronologically it's the easiest way that we start with the prime minister's speech. Yeah. Say what he has to do usually, and after that talk a little bit. The rest is pretty much the same, not completely, but to a certain degree. What else should we do? We should probably actually have one example motion.
Yeah. So I think we'll do the example motion maybe with the argument structure.
Okay, then yeah, this house, I don't know.
Basic minimum wage?
Yeah, basic minimum wage is a good thing. So
this house would introduce a basic minimum wage, which means that anyone in the country should get some amount of money regardless of whether they're working or not.
No, minimum wage or minimum income?
Like that thing, when you don't need to work.
Minimum income.
Yeah,
wages.
Yeah.
So basic minimum income, that's the thing that every citizen gets $500 per month, something like that. So that's the motion we talk about. The prime minister then usually has to start, and the prime minister, I would say, standard start is that we go ahead, that he is describing the problem and all the status quo. So what's the situation right now? What do we want to change? So problem is usually the first thing.
Everyone clear on the motion? Maybe someone wants to suggest us how they would set up the debate. What's the status quo? What's the problem that you would use as the prime minister? Let's say in this example. Oh yeah, so that's one thing of international debates that I've noticed. So when you go around places, when you have some teams that only have experience inside the country, it's usual that you in your kind of native tournaments would see the status quo as if it is in your country, or set the debate as if it was in your country. But if in an international tournament, you should see it as some generic country, unless it's specified. It shouldn't be specific. You would use the status quo as if the status quo that is the status quo in a Western liberal democracy in the world somewhere. Take some example country like UK or US, and then just use that.
So the problem that you could say is that the easiest problem is maybe that you have high bureaucracy when you have to allocate money in accordance with unemployment and employment status. This is one problem you can recommend. It's probably not the best problem, but the easiest to find. Another problem might be that you say that work.
I would just set it up with the principle, say like, we believe that every human being, regardless of what they do, should have some means to live. Like we say, like if you see the status quo, there's maybe, depending on the country, 10%, 6% of people living in absolute poverty who have almost no income. We think that that is not a world that we want to live in, and that's the principle introduced under which you kind of you set the debate with that statement. And then all teams kind of get that, and okay, we end understand this is going to be.
So after that, you introduce a mechanism or a proposal. This is the policy that you want to enact to solve the problem. So we have 6% usually living in absolute poverty. They are homeless, they are not having a chance actually to start really their life. They are probably more prone to crime. All those are problems that you have. Now you want a proposal or an idea how to change that. At an international tournament, usually you don't say a number like I said, $500 per month.
Yeah.
You just say lower middle class wage or something like that. This is what we would give to every citizen. You usually then specify some things. For example, do you want to include children or do you want to exclude them? This is, so you think about some fringe cases where you want to do that. But
when setting up a mechanism, you would think about what the other side will say in regards to your mechanism. So in this case, if you, let's say, set it at any middle class income, right? Then the opposition is going to come out, okay, then people have no incentive to do like minimum wage jobs, and then we have all these problems, whatever. So if you realize that in advance, then you can, government say, okay, we're going to set the minimal income just below the minimum wage we have now. Then like the opposition never has that argument to begin with. So then kind of there you go, there's your mechanism. Yeah. And then
you start with actual arguments. We do the sexy thing, or how do you structure an argument?
Yeah, that we'll get to. So I think we can just make it a scheme that it's really easy. So we have status quo or otherwise setup or otherwise problem, right? Your first government, this is the thing you need to start a debate, right? Then you have two things. So you either like the big government burdens. It's either like, are we justified to do this? And will it work? I think in 99% of the cases, like the first government's case, it's either this or that. But we kind of have to cover both if you want to do a good job. But any arguments you would make would largely fall under these two principles. When I do first government, we usually start with why are we justified to do this, and then in the second speech or at the end of the prime minister's speech, you explain how your mechanism works or how your mechanism solves the problem that you introduce here. So it's always very important that you have both these two things cover, both the principle justification for whatever you're proposing, right? Like, why does it make sense? Why is it a sound philosophical thing to believe in? But also, like, did it also make the lives of people better? Yeah.
At the end of the day, I always found it harder to argue principle and morals. Maybe you disagree, but I usually think at the beginning it's the does it work part and how does it practically make lives of people better. It's usually the thing where you should start. If you disagree, then
yeah, it's
okay.
There are different the other way, but that's just proof that you can do it either way.
Yeah. So I would always say, okay, who do you help? Who is bad off, and how do you help this person, and how do you make those the lives of those people better? Is it justified? Is often the question. Is it okay, therefore, to make the lives of other people worse? Yeah. So you have always those two sides of the coin. Every policy in debating, when you have DCCAs, you will have people. You will have those two sides of the story. It's good for some people and bad for others. And the question is, for the Gov side, usually, why is it justified to harm those people to actually get to improve the life of the other? You could justify it, for example, in this case, the people you are harming are usually better off. This is how you finance usually the minimum income. You finance it by a tax scheme, and that's what we usually do. And taxes are paid by the upper middle class or mostly by the upper middle class, but as well by everybody who's just this is how you finance the minimum income. The minimum income helps mostly those people who are worse off. And you can say, usually we should, so if we can make people happier without making other people a lot unhappier, then this might be a good idea. Just in principle, that this might be a case of being justified. How does it work? Is the idea if you give people money, then the worst problems you can solve. You can solve homelessness, you can solve this petty crime that you need to do to get food on the table for your children. You can solve the problem of the next thing that I would do is talking about how expensive poverty is. If you are poor at some point at the beginning, then everything else is getting extremely hard. So washing your clothes is getting hard if you don't have a washing machine. Getting the first steps to a job is getting incredibly expensive. If you don't have a car in the first place, it's harder to find jobs. All those things are then incredibly expensive for you, and you can solve those problems pretty easily. This is how it works, and
so we have several examples now to check whether any you're still not asleep and paying attention. Let's make one of these arguments. Before we move on to the first stop, let's just for the people who maybe have even less experience, let's make a basic argument of what you would do with the first argument. So the model that I don't know we usually are taught with to begin with is this one. It's somewhat easy to remember. I don't know why. It's a statement, explanation. An example.
The funny thing is in Germany we are not that fast forward for us. It's just sexy, not sex.
Impact.
We have E is either impact or illustrate. Impact is probably not a channel. Yeah. It just want. Yeah. It's the same.
We can.
Impact is probably a good thing. Sexy is like why. You can.
Okay. So everyone clear what these words mean? Right? Like statement. So we have some basic assertion that we introduce our argument with. Like this will do certain thing, or this is good because we use some analysis to explain why. Your argument becomes more persuasive at the point where you can provide an example of how this works, either a real world example or maybe a made up one, or a real world one, and the real impact of on the society. So we need a statement from you.
Just any argument for the minimum. Why is minimum income a good thing? Okay, the person who's going first will not be asked for the rest of the session.
Can you repeat the question?
Why is the idea of minimal income good? Why is it a good idea to do this?
Poor people will be able to buy things which they can afford.
Do you think this sounds like an explanation to a statement? So what would be the statement that this explanation statement that say decreases crime. So why does that happen?
Wait a second, just one thing quickly. In this case, it's pretty easy to explain why crime is a bad thing. Everybody intuitively buys that. Yeah. Sometimes you have to justify why the thing that the statement is aiming for is a bad thing.
Yeah. You probably not have this reduces crime as a separate argument because it's an easy thing. We can take a harder one that actually has all these points.
Yeah, I just want to. No. Let's just go with the simple one first.
No. I think
you want?
Okay, I can propose one. Let's say if I was making a statement for justification, I would say because everyone deserves it. That would be like the open. a common misconception across.
Really?
Yeah.
So, besides the point that that's factually likely,
yeah.
That's not the question. You have that in every country. You have that in Germany as well. Just the level probably is higher. When we talk in Germany and you give everybody like 3,000 euros, then probably nobody would work. Then that is probably factually true. At 1,000 euros, probably plenty of people would work. At the level of 500 euros, probably everybody would work. So it's a question of level, and it's not different from the UK, Ukraine, Germany, and or probably Thailand. So you just say that's why we introduced the idea of the lower middle class. For example, this is that's a good mechanism. That's a good proposal. Then you say lower middle class. Probably most people want to achieve more than lower middle class. Maybe not everyone. They can get happy via other means, but most of the people would. And then you say that is not unlikely for. I think this argument works in every country. You would probably say in some countries more, in other countries less. But that's fine as well. Then you can make a distinction in your argument. You can say, for example, when we talk about Western Europe, the US, and Japan, then it is true when we are talking about developing countries, then that's probably not as true. And when we are talking about the BRIC states, probably it is true to some degree. So you can make differentiations then when you have different status quo. That's fine. That's usually a good thing to do. But the different status quos are not a problem.
Right. So everyone kind of understand what this means. But we should have minimal income for everyone, lower middle class level. Everyone should get some payment every month because everyone deserves it. That's our statement. Okay, so how do we prove that? Anyone, anything. Why does everyone deserve a chance? Like, what's the
Go ahead.
Okay, everyone deserves to live. So if poor people can't afford even food, so the government takes their desire to live.
Yeah, I think that's sound. What we're basically saying that you deserve it because you're.
That needs to happen sooner or later.
Maybe that's what happened to David. Oh yeah. So basically, what we're saying here is that everyone deserves it because they're human. Like that is the criteria at which you deserve like a minimal standard of living, like a dignified life. Because you can use any nice philosophical theory, let's say that we are not kind of means to an end. Is the thing that David likes to say, meaning that every person deserves to have some kind of chance in life or some kind of dignity because we are human. We deserve it as a given. That's our whole view.
And I have an idea that we have a society, and ages ago, for example, when every human was born, we had, for example, catch a fish or something to eat. And now, because of our society, because we built this government and so on, people, when he just born, it is really possible that he just can't survive without this minimum age, and he doesn't have any possibility like was ages ago without society.
That even works as an example.
No, that's actually an explanation that property is a social construct. If you follow this whole social construct, you take away opportunity. I would say I like the idea. I just would pay attention with that argument because that would mean that you give this minimum wage to everyone, but for example, disabled. Because in that society they never had the chance, and if you derive it from historical evidence, I just want to say there are problems with that, but the idea is good, and this is a possibility. I'm not quite sure. I'm a little bit skeptical with this Manu means to an end thing because it's usually a little circular. I think you can say everybody deserves it with the idea that we have this category human, and this category human that you fit into and that could happen to you at every point in time. That's probably a more practical one. Once again, I'm apparently more practical and you're more philosophical, which is But you can say everyone deserves it. The reason for that might be that everyone at some point in time.
Yeah.
Or the second idea might be.
That means that what he's saying is the birth lottery.
Yeah.
Another thing.
Two things. Firstly, birth lottery. That would have been my next point. But the next point that by some event in my life, it might have happened that I fall down to it, and that because this is true for everyone, this has a benefit for everyone, and therefore everyone should deserve that. But this is a thing explanation. It's usually good if you have several arguments for why your statement is right.
Yeah.
Because then, if someone attacks just one of those things, you still have a line of argumentation that holds this statement true.
Is everyone clear about this? The idea that you kind of like anyone can be born into anything, so you don't choose where you're born in. Like it's only chance that like you got lucky and got born in a rich family because you get like a nice education and you're set for life. And it's also this, like you lost the lottery if you were basically born into a very poor family or like you were born with some kind of disability or something. So which means that we need some kind of big brother mechanism to take care of everyone because we can't ensure fairness.
Now we need examples for that. Anyone has a nice story to tell? Yeah, maybe, but so just try it. Usually, telling a story is a nice thing. Silence.
The main task of every government and each country is the equal possibility for each human. So if we increase minimum salary, it will improve quality of living for everybody in this country.
This is rather an explanation than an example.
But I guess like a usual example people use for this is like welfare states like Sweden, where like you have the like people live better because everyone's taken care of because the government actively tries to combat these things. Higher living standards, everyone's more happy.
Or so this is usually the better example. If you make structural examples, an individual example is possible as well.
Yeah.
I would say that you say, imagine a world where I'm born poor and I don't have this minimum wage. I will probably stay poor because my family can't take care of me because I have to work from an early age. Whereas imagine the same person, this me with a family that has enough to live, that doesn't have to send me to work early, where I know that I can sleep safely in a bed all the time, that I don't have to be afraid that I starve the next day, then I can probably go to school. Then I have the possibility to achieve whatever I want. Things like that. This example on a personal level works as well.
Yeah. So it's important to know that you can have two things. Like it's nice if you have something that's almost statistical, and because these are like certainly true. Like you can't really argue with data most times. Data format, but certainly that you can, if you just paint a picture, it's equally as powerful. I think like your example is more powerful than just saying, "Oh, look, Sweden did it and everyone's happy." So that good persuasiveness if you just paint the picture well and how it happens in a world where this doesn't take place, in a world where this does.
So the thing is, logically, the Sweden example makes a little bit more sense because my thing could be just an example. It could be just one thing. But usually judges tend to be humans as well, and humans like those stories.
Yeah.
So it is really hard to get this picture out of your head, and this is why those personal stories are powerful as well. And the last thing is impact. This is usually where you make it in comparison with other things. That you are saying this is the main challenge that we have as human beings, that we give everyone the same chance, something like you said. That you make it important and put it in relation to other problems, or that you link it to other problems. For example, if you talk about the refugee crisis, can link it to that. You can say why this everybody deserves it is not just a beautiful idea, but can finally we are at a point where it can become a reality. And that we always have this idea that everybody deserves this dignity as a human being. We have this now. But now, for the first time, we can make it really happen and stuff like that. So that you make it either in comparison to other problems or the problems of the other side, or that you make it in comparison to the large scale.
Yeah, so kind of like so what you did so far, I hear is really cool. But if you also make it as like an advancement for the human race, it seems better. Your case becomes more persuasive.
Yeah.
So it's not just we solve some problem for certain poor people, but like we make humanity better. Yeah. So yeah. No one, anyone? We can move on.
Go. So, did any one of you learn anything new at this point? That's otherwise I would have said that.
Let's call it today.
So the problem, this part was David's part. He prepared that; it's his fault. Now we don't know what you already know. This is a little bit of our problem. This is why we need your feedback to something. So you need to tell us if this was interesting for you, or those are things that you already learned before.
We've learned it before, but it was interesting and there was some new information.
Okay. That's good and bad. Okay.
So we just moved now?
Yeah.
We'll do the same thing for opening up.
No, I was down there for the first time with the rebuttal. Yeah, but yeah. No, yeah, you're right. Usually you start with, I would say, either making another framing, naming another problem, or refuting the problem. So you actually go along the government speech and attack usually every part, or the parts that you can attack.
Yeah. Pretty much, like, if you're in opposition, like, you have certain things to do, but it's probably best, like, if you want to win the debate, then you want to attack like the whole view of the government. So whatever they said is the status quo, or whatever they say this is like the impact of this is, you just start your speech with nailing them on and say like how this is bad, how this is something they ignored, or something that they totally missed, or something that's actually not as good as they make it sound.
In this example, you can do several things as opening up. You can, for example, say that inequality needs to certainly be justified. And this is a good thing then, that we need inequality, because inequality mirrors to a certain degree what we did and how hard we worked in life. And that usually you make concessions, you start with saying we are fine with giving allowances to disabled people or people who cannot work, but people who can work and don't want to work, those are the people we want to talk about. We find it just simply unfair that just because they are a human being, they live off the things that someone else earned for them. And that's why we don't believe that every human being deserves that. He needs to deserve that, but just because you're a human, that's simply not enough. This is how I would probably paint a different picture. Yes, we have people who are on the streets, we should fight that. Yes, we have all those problems. But giving it to everyone is probably the wrong way to do it.
Yeah, because, I mean, basically, what we're talking about is that the government had a case. Like, imagine, this was the impact. Let's say if they put the cherry on top, there was the example, there was the explanation, there was the sound idea behind it, and there was the principle that they operated on. And if you're in opposition, then if you attack this, which everything else is built on, then it's good. Because then you kind of devalue everything else that they said. Because if you manage to take apart the whole basis of the case, you figure out, okay, so this is everything that, like, everything stems from this thing that they said, or this thing that they said they believe. Then it kind of doesn't matter what example they use, doesn't matter what kind of impact they say. However, it's not always possible. So you just take apart, what they said, for example, what they said for impact, what they said for other things. Yeah, so we're basically going to start with rebuttal. because that's the first new thing that gets introduced into the debates in opposition. Everyone understands how rebuttal works, right? The other side introduces points. Your job in opposition is to first and foremost take down those points as well as you can, in the amount of time that you can. Probably spend maybe like 5 minutes each, maybe 2 minutes on it, maybe less if you can. But certainly, like, don't leave things completely unanswered, and try to actually substantively answer the points they have.
Yeah. I would say that a rebuttal can consist of, you can always attack different levels in a rebuttal. Yeah, sometimes you can attack the premise. That there are two kinds of premises. Firstly, the factual premise, the world doesn't look like that. For example, when we look to Western liberal societies, then everybody has the possibility to get enough allowances so that he doesn't have to starve, to be homeless. This is just simply not right. So you can claim that it's true for some countries, but most countries that we're talking about, this is just simply not true.
Yeah, so I mean, think of it this way. So every argument is a claim or a statement that A leads to B, that we have a status quo of certain inequality that leads to people not achieving their best or living unhappy lives. And the same government in this case claims that we have an unequal status quo, some people don't get their chance, which leads to this perpetuating, which leads to people never getting that chance, which leads to there being people living usually impossible lives. And then you see whether you can break this chain. If you say that, hey, but that's actually not true. Like most Western states, it's not true. You have this chance. It's not like this necessarily leads to this. There's something else happening. That's the
You can as well say that high inequality leads to you working harder. This is, for example, another argument that you can make. And it doesn't need to be that you achieve less, but maybe see that you achieve more. That when you see that you have a high inequality, that you have the possibility to not that the state is not taking away your money, and that you know that you can work up the ladder, then you say, I'm working harder, and therefore I can actually achieve more. So it's a weird argument.
Can be said that we have to create a new working place instead of wasting money for people who don't want to work.
You can say that, yeah. The problem with alternative measures is usually that then the government bench can say, yeah, well, we could probably do both. This wasting money argument tends to be not that strong in debating.
So I'm not sure how the debate works in Ukraine. Do you guys encounter usually like arguments like we can do this because this will cost a lot of money?
So this is, to me, this is some variation of the money argument. And this is why it is an argument, but probably not one that usually holds true or isn't that convincing in international debate. But yeah, this is in reality a pretty good argument.
Yeah, because if you have it, you still like you just don't spend time on it, just put it out there as content. Like, hey, look, we can also do this to solve your problem.
Just be shift and develop and this would be better. Yeah, I'm just mocking it, but usually I wouldn't do it like that, but it is a valid rebuttal. You can actually, if you are really good, you can try to make it relevant by saying, look, I know we're living in debating land and this tends to be a bad argument, but in reality it's actually a pretty big deal. And then talk about the amount of money you're spending. With a country with like 10 million people, you're probably about to spend like 10 billion euros, something like that. This is the amount of money we're talking about. Yeah, you can create an incredible amount of jobs with that and can actually do something. So if you frame it differently, then it is possible. Yeah. It is just way harder in debating to make money.
I mean, you could easily explain it as if, like, by creating these new jobs, we create them only for the people who need these jobs and don't have them at the moment. If we just give money to everyone, we're giving it to like 90% of the people who don't need it now, and only like as a thing, like helping these people. But yeah, I mean, just finishing up with to say like, I mean, this is a fair point to make, but what they said didn't prove it. Like there's a flaw in logic there, or you can just say their example is sort of made up. I mean, like equally, like any other things is possible. If they're not using a real world example, they're more like just inventing a story. Like you say, like, yeah, it's fine. We can also tell you a story of something else.
Yeah, you can then tell the story of a hardworking kid that could achieve something that he came from. No, I just make it rather quick.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, so we already.
Anyone has the time? Okay, yeah.
All right, so I mean, second half, like extensions, I'm going to cover in my workshop. We're going to talk about more explicitly about making extensions anyway.
I would say the structure is everywhere basically the same, that you start rebuttal, then make 2 to 3 arguments, and then wrap up what is important in your speech or in your team line.
Yeah,
this is usually what you tend to do.
Yeah, we can just maybe re-highlight the things, like the burdens that all these things have.
Maybe David's talking about whip speeches
then. Yeah, so essentially, the first government, what's your burden? What do you have to do in this debate? You. Yeah.
The burden of opening government to prove that the case we propose is justified and it is real work.
Yeah. And to provide some kind of model or problem of status quo in which this debate works. Very good.
The opposition?
The arguments of the opening government and make arguments of the opposition.
Yeah, good. So, yeah, if possible, we rebut the worldview of the opening government. Not possible, we rebut at least all the arguments.
We should talk about probably closing government and closing opposition. So I think the task of closing government is twofold. Firstly, providing better arguments than the opposition side, rebutting, of course, opening opposition and closing opposition, especially closing opposition, because no one else can do that. The thing then is that you don't just have to prove that you're beating the opposition teams, as you have in opening government, but you, in the whip speech especially, you have to provide the judges with good reasons that your arguments were better than opening government's arguments as well. So you don't just have to beat those 2 teams, you have to beat this team as well.
Yeah.
And this is the difference. They just have the simple debate to a certain degree. Beginning. You are having a debate with all 3 teams. And it is mostly easy to have the debate with the opposition teams because you intuitively do that with your rebuttal. But you always have to keep in mind that you're having, to a certain degree, a debate with the opening government as well. About why are you more important.
Which means that in extensions, and of course we're going to talk about this more, you have to provide stuff that is new and powerful, better than what these guys. Same for closing opposition with regards to these guys.
Yeah, the whip speaker of the closing government has a special role because he is the only person in the whole debate who has all other teams have 2 chances to rebut another team. So opening government or opening opposition, they all have more chances. But the whip speaker there is the only one who can rebut the closing opposition speaker. And he doesn't have that much time. So this person has to put a special regard on closing opposition.
Can you rebuttal opening opposition at all?
You can do that, you shouldn't do that.
Yeah. So it's really good if throughout the debate you manage to, at least in your head or in your notes, to make sure you realize, let's say if you're closing opposition, and let's say opening argument made 5 arguments, you should see how many of the 5 arguments opening opposition already rebutted. And if they already did that quite well, then you're not going to get any more points in kind of rebutting them again, so you should do it. But if you see that they missed something, then you definitely should. That makes sense.
Sometimes when we play opening government, we don't have enough time to think, to consider a really strong argument. What is your way of preparing? How do you find strong arguments when you are opening government?
Well, I would say yes of training, reading lots of newspapers, and yeah. No, the thing is, two things. Firstly, you tend to have a lot of arguments, so you usually find 5 to 6 arguments. They're probably not all good, and you will know that they are not good. The simple test I usually use if I have a good argument is, would I tell the same argument to a friend if I drink a beer? So if I probably would just say this in a debate, then it's probably a stupid argument. But if I would feel confident in making that argument to a good friend of mine and wouldn't be afraid that he would laugh at me, then it's probably a better argument. So it's a simple way of a reality check. And the second thing, how do you come to this? Just imagine all the different people involved and how their lives will get either better or worse. You just have, with this minimum wage, who's getting this minimum wage? Why does it make their lives better? Who are the different groups? Where does this money come from? Whose lives are getting worse? Just imagine the people in your head, and then usually there come arguments out of that.
Yeah. And then you can just ask yourself the question, like, I think the first thing we usually start with is, like, why the CA team set this motion? Basically, you just get a motion in first argument, and, like, you have to realize in your head quickly on what this debate is about. So, like, what's the trade-off? Like, what are we debating? So, like, the minimum wage debate, we're probably debating, like, if you're first government, you're like, this motion. So, probably we're going to talk about fairness and equality for everyone, and the opposition will probably talk about how this ruins incentives.
Fairness.
Yeah.
Capitalism.
Yeah, capitalism.
Freedom.
Yeah. Freedom and freedom.
No, the thing is, you should actually, that's a pretty good point, you should read the motion very carefully. Usually every word is important. CAs tend to think about every word, and every word there has a meaning. And sometimes there are arguments and words that you didn't see in the first place. For example, if you have this, this house will set a minimum wage at the, of the income of the lower middle class, then you might just talk about the minimum wage or minimum income. That's probably not that smart because the CAs thought about something when they were putting the lower middle class point. You know what I mean? And usually there are hidden arguments in the motion.
And the rest just comes with experience, basically. Like when you've done, debates in tens or like 3-number kind of debates, then you begin realizing that, even though motions seem different, then like the mechanisms are similar in a lot of things. So you have arguments kind of already made in your head, or you realize that, I know for us, what usually helps is thinking of like, so what's a similar debate?
Because like for me, it's quite the opposite. I would say I had a lot of similar debates, so I tend to actively not think this is the same debate. I always try to create new arguments. What is new? What's so special about this case? We seem to be pretty opposite.
Because we usually prepare principal cases, so for us, like if it would be about the minimal income thing, we would be thinking, oh, what's a similar debate? Oh yeah, the worldwide communism debate, or something like this is also talking with decline of capitalism. You remember what kind of justification they used there? They're like, oh yeah, I have my speech already. And not exactly, but that kind of works.
Yeah, I'm a little bit more deductive. I think about then articles I read, something that had something to do with it. How can you make an argument out of this? So I would say reading a lot helps always.
Regardless,
yeah.
I haven't heard any negative effects of
Yeah,
reading.
but that's something else. No, the thing is that I tend to say at the beginning, it is important to just, as you say, know the cases, know different arguments, and you will then meet debates where this comes again and again. But you will start to really have fun with debating when you actually have more than just the simple example, that you actually have the feeling that you know something. And this just doesn't come just through listening to debates, but getting started.
And if you really bomb it one debate and you go home and you read up on it, have you bomb this?
Yeah.
Maybe David will